Dr. Kudayo, are you? Okay, thank you.
All right, good morning. Can I start now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Kunayo. Okay. And then I'll be talking to us on qualitative research. Please permit me to do this without the video. So today we want to look at qualitative research. While on the field or in gathering data, there are two ways to do primary data or to gather primary data. The first is a quantitative research method, and then the other one is a qualitative method. I will focus on the qualitative research. And then what is qualitative research? What do we do, or what do we mean when we say we want to do qualitative research? We use qualitative research where we want to understand people's experiences. What do I mean by that? For instance, we want to understand your patient in the hospital, not just from a fixed or a fixed perspective, but from their own stories, from their own lived perspective or lived experiences. You have a patient who has whom you've identified as being unique in some kind of form of diseases, and you want to take it further from just asking some standard questions or some identified questions that such patients are asked, but you want to ask general questions around the diseases or around the identified disease. It will be better to use qualitative because the person will tell you their own opinion, their own perspective, how they feel the problem started. The books might say that the disease can start because of some health, nutrition problems, some deficiency in some hormones, but the individual can tell you that it started when he fought with his stepmother, or the disease started when he thought that so it helps us to understand the opinion or the perspective of your patient or of the phenomenon you want to understand on non-numeric information. Most times when we use quantitative, we do research, we force our questions to numbers. What I mean by that is so if you ask what is or how old are you, you can categorize the ages in some boxes. But for qualitative, it has to be, you give word, is in text, is in words, not in numbers. And also when you want to ask open-ended questions, when you want to understand people's attitude, their beliefs, and their motives. How can we use qualitative research? Sorry, who can use qualitative research? To the sciences, to the medical sciences. Anyone who is interested in human behavior, because it takes humans to speak. And then what you do in qualitative research is more of words or text written down, or documents. So if you don't have words, if you don't have people talking to you, you can't use qualitative. So anybody in any field, dentists, medical persons, any nurses, pharmacists, anyone can use qualitative research. Now, when can we use qualitative research? Like I explained earlier, we can use qualitative research when we want to describe live events. We want to describe, maybe you have an HIV patient, or you have a patient who is on the bed, has been bedridden for a year, and then you want to understand the context of their life event. So it's better to use qualitative. when you want to enjoy people's stories, you want to have their opinion, their views. You don't want to box those views to numbers. You don't want to give yes, no. In between yes, no, there are lots of information missing. Don't know. If you say I don't know, how can you not know? For instance, you're asking what do you, in your opinion, what do you think led to your medical problems? And you have yes. Oh no, that can be yes. You have don't know, strongly agree, disagree. Something might be there. There might be some information in between strongly agree and agree that is missing, that can't be found in the quantitative world. But when you use qualitative, you have stories. It's the person's perspective, it's the person's narrative. If you say yes, no, in between yes, no, there is something. And sometimes you have I don't know. I don't interrogated when you use qualitative research. So it's important to allow people to say their stories. You use qualitative research when you want to understand people's narrative, people's stories. Another time that we can use qualitative research is when you want to understand the human side of contradictory opinions. You want to understand, I'm sure in your field, there are opinions that contradict each other. There are opinions that are believed that do not go together. But one of the ways to understand this contrary opinion, it helps you to have a broader view of the problem that you are interested in understanding. The last reason why when we should choose, or that can guide us to choose qualitative research, is when we want to understand social norms, gender roles, cultural beliefs. There's no way you would understand fully social norms or cultural beliefs if you do not ask open-ended questions. If you are going to be asking close-ended questions, they'll be answering your questions, answering your question based from your own Googles, from your own lens. But if you allow people say their mind, then you understand their own norm, you understand their own understanding. If you go with a questionnaire that you have to choose one, then you are helping them see, or they are helping you see what you want them. They are saying what you want them to say. But in quality and on, how can we use qualitative research method? We can use it when we do observation. We'll talk on that later. Either you do observation or you do ethnographic study. You could also do interview. You could carry out interviews. You could do focus group discussions. Sometimes you could look at people's files, hospital files, court files, religious texts. For instance, you want to understand somebody is having giving you an argument that the reason why he's sick is because of something a bit more. Then you go to the spiritual text, of the text that guides such person's belief. For instance, the Quran, the Bible, the other books. Then sometimes when we look at records, you want to read people's diaries to understand them. You want to read archival materials. You want to study hospital case files. Sometimes love letters, anything that has to do with text written. Text messages can be analyzed. We can analyze Facebook messages. We can analyze Twitter messages. Maybe you put something on Twitter to ask people to react to a particular type of disease on Twitter or your Facebook page, then you can use qualitative analysis. Remember that they are reacting, they are speaking their mind. You've not boxed them to ask some questions, but you've allowed them, you've asked just one question. What's your view on, let's say, I don't know medical terms that much, but allow me to use my own terms or my own examples. Let's say you want to understand sexual behavior of undergraduates in OAU, and then you've done questionnaire, you've done other forms, you've asked interviews, you've done focus group discussions. Then you go online, maybe to their WhatsApp pages in their class, and then you get access and you post questions that your questionnaire or other forms of interrogation you think have not answered. Then you post on the page and you ask, what do you think of, or you create a scenario and tell people to react to such. Then you are gathering qualitative research. So qualitative is more open. It's more open as long as it's guided. You can go on Twitter. I know somebody who did who used Facebook, looked at reaction to head tasks, and they went on Facebook and gathered it and analyzed those texts. Those reactions were not even his questions, but there are ways you can guide such to see that the opinion of people matters. And then he wrote a paper that was published in an high impact journal on people's reaction on Facebook towards NSAS. So qualitative is vast. Ways to look at qualitative is quite vast. So going on, I said I was going to explain further on observation and creation. There are forms of observation, but here when it comes to, it's better to use a participant observation. Sorry about that background noise. So I go over that again. I said when we want to use observation or ethnographic study, the best form, there are forms of observation, but the best form to use is a participant observation, because we are starting afresh. We are doing it, there is a non-participatory in the sense that you can be in a class and not introduce yourself as a researcher and then observe what they are doing. But it's for starting, it's better to use the participant observation, where people know that you're observing them, and because it takes more skill to do the non-participatory and other forms of observation. So you do observation, you collect data in its naturally occurring environment. For instance, you want to look at a patient on the bed. Of course, at that moment, the natural environment for that patient is being in the hospital, is the environment where the care is given. So that is a natural observation. But if what you want to observe in the client is or in your patient, I don't know what it is, I think it's client, not patient, but bear with me as if what you want to observe in your patient is in his natural environment, maybe in his house, you want to go to his house, then he must be in the house. But if you are interested in the environment of the hospital, you have inpatient, then he must be in the hospital. So that is to explain the naturally occurring environment. So how do we know when it's observation or ethnography? It is observation when you are more of an outsider than an insider. It is observation. What I mean by that is, it is observation when you are not particularly in the person's life. You come and go, but you're observing in the space. But if it is a nurse that is a caregiver, if you are going to stay more with that patient, you are going to stay a lot more than a medical doctor, then you'll be doing ethnographic study because you are observing the person more in a space. I don't know if that's clear. Please let me know if that's clear enough. But what I mean is, the more of an insider you are into the person's life, into the caregiving, then you'll be doing ethnographic study. But if you are of the house side, you are just observing, you're just looking, you're just coming in, giving drugs, and then you are observing the progress, then you are doing observation. But if you are going to be by the person's side 24/7 throughout the day, then you might be doing ethnographic study. What are the advantages of both study? It is unique because it helps you to understand data collected through other methods. Imagine if you have collected, if you had used questionnaire, there are ways that having to observe will help you understand some of the items on your questionnaire better. It will help you to interrogate it more. It will help you it will give you the person's perspective towards the questions you've asked, towards the items that has been ticked. So it is more, it helps you to understand other methods used. Another advantage is it helps you to sometimes design your questionnaire. So it's advisable sometimes, if you want to use observation, to first do your observation before you build your questionnaire. It helps you to have a more robust questions because you understand the patient or the client better. What are the disadvantages? Imagine all I've said. Of course, it's time consuming. It will take your time. If you have to observe somebody, just a client or a patient, and you have so much questions or questionnaires to gather, and then you have just one person that you have to sit with, observe, and tick, because when you use observation, you use checklists. And then imagine you have to sit with this person and check, okay, does he cough? Yes. Does he smile? When drugs are administered to him, how does he react? Is he hungry? And then you have those checklists. You know how long that would take. It can be time consuming, and it can drain you of your energy. Also, sometimes documenting can be difficult. As much as you have checklists, it can be very difficult or challenging to document all you see. Then eventually to code all you see, it can be cumbersome, it can be challenging. Another thing is it's inherently subjective. Of course, what you see as smile, I might see as frown. So it's what your patient will see as, what you will take as hunger, might be the patient's natural way of reacting. So it's subjective. It's based on your own biases. So those are the disadvantages of observation. Moving on, the most conversant one, I'm sure the one that most of us are aware of, is interviews. Interviews are done when you ask open-ended questions. You ask questions that do not reflect a yes or no, that do not give a short answer. You ask questions that probe, that makes people say their mind, without filters, and it takes time. But these are interviews. You want to ask people's personal histories, their perspective, their experiences, and sometimes you want to ask sensitive questions. You can only do this when you do interviews. There are two forms. We have the key informant interviews, and we have the in-depth interviews. And I will explain the difference. For the key informant interviews, you want to ask questions from experts. For instance, you want to ask about, you want to ask about cavity. At least I know about oral cavity. There are people you want to ask the patient who has cavity. At the same time, you want to ask the caregivers, the specialists that can speak on oral cavity. But if you are going to be doing in-depth interview, you can ask a neutral person who has seen, of course, we have all seen people with their cavity not looking well. You can ask me question on oral cavity. What do you think? Or hole in the teeth, hole in the tooth. You can ask a neutral person but if you want to ask an expert view, then you do key informant interview. Also, if you want to identify potential problems, of course, you can't ask a neutral person or a layman questions when you want to identify potential problems. But when you need to fix the problem, you can ask a layman, because the layman will have a general person's view. So you can ask a layman. That's when you use in-depth. But if you want to fix problems, please ask experts. For experts, you need less time because there are fewer persons. But for in-depth, you need more time because you have more persons to interview. And the challenge with key informant is usually not a true representation of the population. You know, it's about specialists, it's about the experts. But if you want to fix problems, you want to have a better representation of the problem, then you have to do in-depth interview. Now, how do we carry out a good interview? Most of us assume that we know how to carry out interviews. You know, it's easy to ask questions and just get responses. But I tell you from experience that is not, it is skill. It's not something you assume you know. It is skill that you can build or you can work on. So it's important to build on this skill. You want to ask questions. It's not everybody that can ask questions that can probe. It's not everybody that knows how to probe. It's not everybody that knows how to probe, psych people up to elicit the responses that you would need them to say out. For instance, I've had to analyze interviews for people, and you discover that the person that is asking the question is in a rush. He just wants to get the interview done. He just wants to ask. So he has the interview guide and is asking, okay, so number one, I was told to ask you this question. So please listen carefully and respond to me as you deem fit. So number one, who is your best friend? So the respondent says, Adeniyi or Francis or Fred. And then he says, okay, thank you. What does your best friend do? Is a mechanic, is a medical doctor, is a nurse. Okay. Then the third question. Sorry, I'm moving on to the third question. Sorry, it will soon be done. So the third question says, why do you think your friend is a nurse or is a medical doctor? He says, I don't know. His or her choice. Okay, thank you very much. Number 5 question. And why do you think, or to what extent do you think your friend is doing well? I said, to my best knowledge, is doing well. But if a good interviewer or a person that is skilled in asking questions, even from the first question, is who is your best friend? My best friend is Fred or is Francis. I will ask, why is he or she your best friend? Why not? Is the person the only friend you have? He says no. Okay, so what made you choose him as your favorite person? Why is this person your pally? I would ask such questions because I'm quite skillful in asking questions and I won't be in such an hurry. At the same time, I'll be conscious of time. But for someone who is not skilled and who is not willing to learn the skill, it will rush up the question. And at the end of the day, you won't get so much out of the interview session. So it's important to know the objective of the study. Interrogate it well as an interviewer. You must understand the question, the objective of the study. You must understand what the study is about. If you do, your interview guide will only guide you. It's a guide. You are not boxed to the interview guide, but it will guide you. You'll be propelling towards the objective of the study if you are a good interviewer. You understand the objective, you understand the goal of your research, and the questions, even though you are guided by interview, you know you have the respondent to say what you want him to say, not put words in our mouth, but you know that, for instance, he has answered, who is your best friend? He says Francis or Frank or Edward. Okay. But you know that just that response has not answered what you want to know. You know how to probe further, to ask questions that will bring the responses that you need in your analysis. But we're seeing that people ask questions based on just the interview guide, and at the end of the day, the analysis is difficult. It's tougher. The analyst would have to start thinking on behalf of the respondent, what he means or what he wants to say, rather than having those things already written out in text. Excuse me. So it's important to build this skill. There are ethical considerations for interviews. You don't want to ask questions that will bring traumas back to the person. You don't want to ask questions that are sensitive. You don't want to ask questions that can break your client down. For instance, you want to ask questions on trauma or past trauma, on childhood trauma. You have to be skillful to know how to ask questions that will not bring the pain of the past as much as breaking your client or your respondent down. You must prepare for the interview. Don't just assume that you know how to ask questions. Oh, I have good communication skill, so I can ask questions. No, you must prepare for the interview. You must recruit your participants well. You must have your recording gadgets. On a lighter mode, there was the time I and a partner and a friend went to ask it. I just felt, let me use my phone to do the recording. We had these gadgets that we bought, new gadgets. We've used it before, but nothing was wrong with it. We bought new batteries. We had, it was supposed to be a beautiful outing. So we were recording. I just felt somehow in my mind that I should do a backup for the recording. So I brought out my phone and joined the recording. You'll be surprised that yes, we pressed play on the recording gadget, but when we were done and wanted to retrieve the interview, very fantastic interview, there was nothing on the recording gadgets. So one has to be very careful to record, not just with one, and that's why I carefully wrote here recording gadgets. I learned from that experience that it's important to go with more than one. Have a backup in case something happens to one gadget, or while recording, the gadget just stopped working. You wouldn't know. So it's important to have. Then you must rehearse. Rehearsal is important. Rehearse with partners, rehearse in front of your mirror. Rehearse. Don't assume that, oh, I know how to carry out interview. I'm sure some of us would have had some of those experiences that somebody is before you asking you questions and it doesn't sound coherent, or it doesn't sound like in the game. It sounds like he's just struggling. It doesn't make the interview fun. It makes the interview boring. But if you've rehearsed, there's a way it brings you into your comfort zone that makes the interview part of you. It makes it fun. It doesn't make it boring. It can be annoying if the person doing the interview, conducting the interview, is looking at his notes again and again and reading through it. It can be boring. So you have to rehearse. You have to work on your verbal and non-verbal communication skills. One of the things I emphasize is dressing. Please understand your respondents and dress appropriately for them. It's not about you when you're carrying out an interview. It's about your respondents. So dress appropriately. If you are going to a Muslim community, cover your hair as a lady. A guy, don't sag. It helps your respondent respond to you better than to have a judgmental view of you from the beginning of the interview. So it's important to dress. I mean, the dressing is the other way, could be the other way around. So for instance, you have to go to a disco club, or you have to go to interview prostitutes, you have to go and interview drug dealers. You don't wear suit and tie. They won't respond to you. They won't answer you. I can be sure of that. You dress in that way too. So you must dressing must be, we must be conscious of how we dress. It's important to focus on your respondent, not on yourself, when you're going to conduct interviews. You must be careful of your verbal and non-verbal skills. For instance, you're asking an undergraduate questions on sexual behavior, their sexual activities, and your face is judgmental already. You're saying, okay, so how often do you have sex? She says 7 times a week. I say, wow, that's okay, thank you. Already you've shut your respondent down by that clue, by that response. Or you smile and you look at it, and then the next question says, with who? And says, no, I was kidding. You shut him or her down. So you must be careful of your non-verbal and verbal skills. I've mentioned this, that you must make your interview interesting. Document, record, and write sometimes the non-verbal cues. Your recording gadgets will not record when you ask question and your respondent smiles. So you must write that down. Especially if you are doing emotional study, you're doing study that you need the emotions of your respondents as part of things to analyze. Then you must be willing to write. Can 2 persons conduct an interview? Yes, 2 persons can conduct interview on 1 person, but the 2 of you must be partners who have mastered the skill. What is the length of an interview? An interview can it be 1 hour? Can it be up to 2 hours? It depends on the interviewee, the person you want to go, and your respondents. It depends on how busy. For instance, you've gone to, you want to interview the CMD of your hospital, and you want to ask 1 hour, and you have this long list of questions. You are sure you will not have time. So it depends on who your respondents are. Or a patient that is on bed, a caregiver, and you want the person to sit with you and talk for 1 hour. He or she might not be. So you are the one that would decide the length of the question. If you are going to somebody in their own shop, you allow them to attend to their customers and then still come back to you. You can do 2 hours interview because it is in their space. Or you are asking questions from the elderly. The elderly person has nowhere he's going, is in the house. In fact, you are keeping his company. So if you have 15 minutes questions, I'm sure it will help you elongate it. So it depends on your participant. How do we, I think I've talked about interrupted or cancelled in a way. When your interview is interrupted, please bear with the respondent, because it's his own space, it's his time, he's the king. So you must bear with them when they interrupt, or when they have visitors, or when they cancel on you. I don't get angry and say, hey, that man canceled on me, I'm not going there again. Oh, that woman, she was not even nice to me. You don't need their being nice. You need information from them. How do we handle reimbursement? In the economy of Nigeria, our respondents are used to reimbursement. Of course, in other climes, there are ways you give reimbursement. You can give tickets, bus tickets. You can give a coupon to movie, coupon to a voucher to supermarket. But in Nigeria, people will prefer money. Or you give, well, I'm used to buying detergent. If you're going to the elderly, you buy detergent. You can buy towels, depending on how boxed up you have. But thank you enough. I don't work in, but if as student you are going to ask questions, be willing to pray, be willing to let them know from the word go that this research is not funded by anything. There are ways you play on people's emotions. In Nigeria, when I was doing my master's and I had to do an interview, I was psyching them up. I prayed and prayed, your children too will do well, and they will find favor, men and women will help them. That's reimbursement. You are psyching them to see that I don't have money, but I have prayers. The God that I have is what I want to give you. So you must be willing to give something to get what you want. Always emphasize the participant perspective. Be conscious of time management. Ask open-ended questions. How do you do that? You ask what, why, and how. What is will elicit open-ended response. Why are you, to what, how do you mean, to what extent do you, those questions will elicit good responses. Don't ask questions, don't ask does, or do you, those will elicit yes and no responses. Let me move faster because I'm short of time. Focus group discussion is when you bring people together. From the picture you can see, you bring people to discuss their views about a particular phenomenon you are in. So we say 8 to 12. So it depends on how you want it, but usually it's about a group of persons, and then you ask questions. You have a moderator and you have a note keeper, somebody that will write notes. Remember that you have to give ladies setup. You give them labels. Maybe you say participant 1 because you don't want to know their names. You don't want their names to be in your recording. So you just say, you give them participant 1, 2, 3, 4. So when they want to respond, say, okay, hi participant 1, or you give them nicknames. So with their pseudonyms or their nicknames, they respond to you across the as you ask the questions. Usually, let me break it a bit down. Make sure that you allow everybody respond. There are people we call the aggressive respondents. They want, for every question you're asking, they want to be the one to first talk. They want to dominate the conversation. But you have to look out for those who are not talking and ask, participant B, what do you think? What's your opinion? Don't just say because only participant F that is always responding. You would encourage all to give their, if he says, I was going to say what A said, say, okay, so say it in your own words. It helps them to be part of the group. And then usually we have ways of dividing in focus group. There's what we call homogeneity, or together, all females together, or you're looking at part 1 then together, part 5 of part 1 will not be able to say anything. We're not children together. There won't be there will be trouble. So you must look at what is the homogeneity, the thing that brings them together, that you want, that will help your study. Then use that to form the group. These are the comparison, but I think what I said was more important than looking at this for time. How do you capture qualitative data? I said qualitative data is textual, meaning that even if you have narratives, even if you have voice recordings, voice notes, you still have to put it in text. You still have to type them out. You type your field notes, go back to your recording and transcribe. If you do video, you still have to do a transcription of the video. If you do video recordings, usually it's important that you do them without face. Nowadays, there's an argument that if the person does not mind, but sometimes people change their mind and come back and want to come and collect money, especially if you have to do video recording and post on YouTube, on the video recording and then post in your, or maybe at your, careful how you go about that. Now, moving on to transcription. How do we do transcription? We transcribe our speeches into words, like I said. There are forms of transcription. We have the verbatims. In the verbatims, you transcribe everything, all the pauses, the hems, all the pauses, the interruption, the friend comes in, you have to transcribe everything. The baby wants to breastfeed, you have a customer, you can put a pause. They must know that it must sound exactly like you have in the audio file. But for intelligent verbatim, you make it a bit more readable. You lose out a lot of emotions, all the hems, all the respondent breaks down and cry. You must have removed it if you want to do intelligent verbatim. And then we have the edited verbatim. Edited verbatim. In this, you edit the ethics. Usually you use when you want to do language, when you have asked the questions in your local dialect, then you want to do that. So what are the forms of coding? We have, just like you have in quantitative, you also have in qualitative. There's a systematic process. There's a way to go about a process that must be followed before you can say you have collected or you've coded your qualitative data. You must maintain consistency. So the way you transcribe transcription A, or audio recording A, and then the way you are going to code it must be the same way you do for B, for C, for D. So you must maintain consistency. The process that you have gone through must be repeatable. Whatever you have done, if I read your documentation, I must be able to carry out exactly the same thing. I must be able to learn from what you've done. It must be believable. If you said you entered the bush, the unforbidden bush, your village, and you met with the ghosts, and then the ghosts spoke to you, and then you have transcribed file of it is not believable, or you said the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and these are not believable conversations. So what you do must be believable. There must be believability. Then in the process of coding, you're going to be doing reduction. You're going to be reducing your data from the big one to gradually reducing the time we meet. And then your process must be transparent. It must be very transparent. Now, we have two forms of coding. We have the inductive coding. Now we have a transcribed form. You've written all the respondents said, and you have 24 pages, or you have 84 pages, or you have 10 pages of text that you have to code. How do you do the coding? You can do from a ground up approach, in which, if you look at the picture, you have all the data on the left, all the pages on your left hand side of the picture. Then gradually you move on. You start to look for information that comes together under the yellow So you look at data and look for anything that looks like yellow. Okay, from the data I can see that I'm gathering, I'm forming my team from this data. The first thing that comes to my mind is age, sexual debut. So I look through my data, and all I'm seeing popping out is age at sexual debut. So I mark across the data set. I mark that with yellow. Okay, my first abortion is the blue. So okay, abortion. So every time I read, I'm reading through the text, and I read through the 5 files, and I saw that abortion was a big thing. So I marked abortion blue. I go back to the file and I read again, and I see that, oh, there is multiple partnership multiple sexual partners, or across the data again, things that speak to multiple partner. But it's my data that tells me that guide a preconceived way of analyzing. No, but I looked at my data. I had gone through the field with a questionnaire and interview guide. But I look at my data and I discovered that my data has 4 main themes. Then I start to code it that way. That is inductive. But for deductive, I already went to the field with my themes. I know what I want to categorize from. I've read, I've done literature review, I've done all of the necessary things, and I know what obtains on the field. So I have a preconceived idea and I go to the field with those codes. So when I come back, I through the data and I start to look at where my code exists in my data. So the difference is, in the deductive, you have a preconceived code. You have how you want to code your data. You have your categories, your themes. But in the inductive, you do not. You allow the data guide how you would have your themes. That is the difference. Now, what are the coding strategies that we can use? I'll just quickly go through it. We have the description focused coding. We'll explain that later. We have the interpretation focused coding, and we have the presumption focused coding. For time, do I still go on, or what do we do? Hello.
Hello, ma.
Yeah, because I say that we have less than 15 minutes. Yeah, so should I go on or pause here and ask questions? Because it's important that we understand it. What do you think?
Yeah, like how much time do you think we have to complete the session?
I think the session ends at 9, right?
Yes. I mean, given how far you've gone.
I can rush it, but I think rushing it will not be impactful. Let's ask questions. Let me stop here and let's ask questions.
All right, fine.
Thank you.
Okay, fellows. With show of hand, if you have questions, you can bring it up. Ma, you can also pick on any of the fellows to confirm that they get the message you are passing.
Hello, are we here? Let's make it active and interactive. I don't want to just speak and then have people in their laundry or in their doing their laundry. Let's ask questions. So far, what do you think?
Okay. Please unmute your mic and speak.
Good morning, ma. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much for the section. First of all, I want to let's say make an observation between the quantitative analysis and the qualitative analysis. It seems to me like the quantitative is a bit easier because it deals with numbers already, so you can just deduce what you want and then you can easily manipulate data. That's for that. Secondly, it's between the inductive and the deductive. If you are to probably use your inductive, that is, allow the field to guide how you want to take your data, is there a possibility that there will be a particular theme that you might not be able to explore? Because if you're using the deductive, probably it could be like a guide or previous studies that has explored all the basic concepts in that field. So since you have a guide, I feel like it's easier for you to say, okay, I've done this, it's led to this trait. Then you are focused on what to do. But if you are using the inductive, is there a possibility that you could leave out a particular session, probably because your respondent also did not think in that line? That's my first question. Is there a possibility that such kind of thing happen?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. For the easy, yes, quantitative is a bit more easier than qualitative. But as you go on in the field of research, qualitative is more you'll be solving more problems. Best way to do policy intervention, policy recommendation. If you are doing policy recommendation from just quantitative, no one will believe you. They will tell you you don't have the respondent or the people whose problems you want to solve the responses. So if you are interested in going into policies, intervention studies, it will be important to do at least mixed method, because sometimes both of them cannot stand alone. In some instances, it will be better to mix the method. So, but like you pointed out, quantitative seems a bit more easier. Qualitative is a bit more rigorous, but you'll be helping more lives. All right, thank you. So the next question to inductive and deductive. It's your choice. No one will force you to either do the, but like you rightly pointed out, you've read through the literature, and then from the literature you can know if you can do inductive or deductive. What do I mean by people have done extensive work, they've done this, they've done that, but they've not put your cultural views. There are ways I borrow from the West, Nigerian West now, as in Southwest Nigeria. I borrow from the Yorubas, I go to and I'm Igbo, and I see that through the literature, there is something in my culture that has not been done, that nobody has put spotlight on. So that I could try to do deductive and literature that guides you to know whether you are going to do inductive or deductive. But you can use both. I think that's the easiest way. But there's nothing that is all exhaustive like we used to think that if I want to research on sexual behavior of undergraduate, you look at the cultural perspective of your village. So it depends on, it's you that decides if you are going to do inductive or you are going to do both. But the literature, when you pitch your tent in either places, both, you have to justify why. So it's not just picking it and just saying, okay, I'll pick inductive, therefore I'm going to do inductive. Just like when you want to do regression, there are things that guide it. So it's the same way. I think I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Yeah, can I add to the answer? Thank you always for your brilliant lecture. I'm always here, and I learn anew. But there are two things also that addresses inductive versus deductive. If, like you brilliantly noted, your deductive is because there are themes. The literature has generated themes that you can kind of explore in the field. But there are many times that you are exploring something for the first time, and there is no theme to allow you to do that. So you would use inductive to generate new themes, including the fact that you might have to use inductive if you want to if you use the qualitative to enable you develop a questionnaire. So it is your inductive that generates the theme that you will now explore with your questionnaire. So there are things that you truly don't know. But I think for me, inductive is a lot powerful because you might find that even if everybody already knows your inductive analysis might generate something that they usually have not known before. And for example, I did a study, my PhD study, where because of my inductive analysis, I was able to generate that even high level top women, because I did medical and dental senior people, that even at that level, they take permission. They take permission from, and it took an inductive analysis. We would have used team. I wouldn't have seen that as, because we had done preliminary studies, but they did not, that was not part of the teams I saw. It took an inductive analysis to generate something new that had not existed in the literature in that way. So it has its pros and cons, and like Dr. Ekundaya says, inductive is a lot more, but even if you have developed teams based on what exists, your inductive might just enable you generate what you want to do. But having said that, everything, remember once again, your methodology and your analysis method is guided by your study objective. Thank you very much, Dr. Ekundaya. Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yeah, we have two hands raised. Nasir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for the presentation, ma'am. My own clarification is regarding the ethics of the observational study. For example, there was a WhatsApp page I was on some years ago, and the person wanted to observe the reaction of participants on that page to a particular issue. So my question will now be, would it be ethical, and how do we go about it? Who do we meet to get permission from, to enter, to be on those kind of WhatsApp pages to assess the respondents, and would the data that we are getting be dependable if we inform them before being on such a page to assess their response to a particular issue?
Thank you very much. Who is the admin of the page is whom you would have to talk to. I think I'm aware, at least I've read two papers where people just went on Facebook, went on Twitter, downloaded without like rant. There's this group in Nigeria called Rant Women or something, where people just complain. There's a Facebook called Rant, where people just rant, just like the word says, rant. So if you go on Rant, of course you have to, there must be somebody behind Rant that can help you post questions to ask. For instance, what do you think of husbands who do not provide for their homes? After all, the Bible says men who do not blah 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 are worse than an infidel. So they put it on the Rant admin can help you post, and then the reaction from the onset, you sought permission to enter such page. You can't just enter people's page and copy their data, even though it's on the internet. It's supposed to be free, but you won't be able to tell your respondent that you got it from so page, and then that would be theft. So it's possible to do that. Then going on from that to say that, would people not change their reaction when they know you are observing them? Well, you can't change. You've already told us that it's participatory, so we know that if a part of it is bias, because your respondents already packaged themselves. They packed well. If for instance, they are going to a family, the husband and wife used to shout on each other before. They used to shout on the children. They will shout, but it won't be as much as they do when you're not there. But once you state that it's participatory observation, already we know that there are some level of change in behavior, but you will still be able to get a bit more than if you had done just questionnaire. So
Thank you. Yes, I'm sure that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Professor Adejumo's hand was up earlier. I don't know if she's still.
Yeah, the network. The network. Logged out. I am back. I want to thank the presenter. Thank you very much. I wanted to contribute and then make a comment, but I think Professor
No, it seems your network is not so strong. Your bandwidth is poor. We can barely hear you.
You can't hear me, right?
Yes, it's.
Hello, can you hear me?
It's better now. So we can't hear you, ma. I think the bandwidth is poor. Yeah. Your speech is slow. We can't get it clearly. I think.
You might have to chat her. Maybe she can't.
Yes,
I guess it's a network.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Our network is poor. So I think we should take Emmanuel. I think we may have to fix another session to complete the lecture so that we can take time to answer questions on this. Is that fine by you, Ma?
Yeah, very fine. I might, because ordinarily I was preparing for 2 sessions, but I think you might, if you won't mind, if there will be time, you might make it 3.
Okay.
As in, I was supposed to do today and another time, but if there's a way we can, because there is a lot more to say, but for rush.
Okay, I think it's better we get it and get it right than rush it. So we'll fix sessions to cover it. Yeah. Okay, Emmanuel.
Thank you
very much, Ma, for the presentation. Thank you very much, Ma, for the presentation. My question is on the focus group discussion.
Yes, sir.
Is it necessary in every research work? And is there a preference for a setting? Like, does it have to be online or an on-site thing? That's my question, Ma.
Thank you very much for the brilliant question. Can it be off-site? Yes. Usually, when focus group discussion started, it had to be physical because there was a need to monitor how people sat, how people is a setup, sitting form that you had to follow pattern. The circular was the most preferred. Then we have as in sitting in circle. Then we have the one that is triangular, like is that triangular? Rectangular, like you sit, and then the moderator is right in front at the center. But then you have, I think that's the preferred. Those are the 2 preferred. But nowadays, there's an argument that focus group discussion doesn't have to be physical anymore. Although there are discussions around it now. But everybody must show. Their videos must be on. It's not like we are doing webinar now that we can't see our faces. Because if you do focus group discussion, we call it is a focus. But if peradventure, as we are talking now, as we are in this class, some of us might be in the kitchen, some might be in the bathroom, some might be on their beds, some might be so we are focused, but we can't read body language, we can't read gestures, I can't see my students, I'm not sure if I'm communicating. So that might not be acceptable. So you have to turn on your video. Then do you have to do focus group discussion? It depends on what your objective is about. There are when just in-depth interview will solve the problem. There are times when you have to combine in-depth interview with focus group discussion, because you want people, you feel that people will react better. For instance, you want to ask questions from parents of a secondary school. You've asked the children to give the phone numbers of their parents, you've gone to their houses or their shops to ask questions. But you feel that what brings them together is a school. Answering questions in their homes might not individually, might not elicit the question about as much as if you bring them together in a parent-teachers association meeting. Throw a question about the principal. Do you think the principal or the management of the school is doing well? You'll be surprised that the responses that you had when it was just you will be totally different from what you will have when it's group discussion. There are things people in the when it's interview would not remember that would come up in the focus group. And then if you ask them questions from what you got when it was just in individual interview, in the focus group discussion, you might be surprised that it might take a new turn in their responses. So it depends on you. You are the one, or your as you go on and understand research more, you're the one that will sit with your objective and ask yourself, what can help me answer these questions? It's like asking, can I do regret? Can I do can I use questionnaire 2 skills? For instance, you want to look at sexual behavior, you want to look at resilience, you want to look at flourishing, there are different skills to measure those variables. It's the same way with qualitative. You must be able to know, okay, am I going to do I need interview? In this, do I need interview? Do I need just observation? Do I need both? Do I need, so those are questions too, but you can combine, you can choose to use one depending on your research method, what you design at the beginning, and your objective.
Hello, thank you very much, ma. Yeah, I think that is the last question. Okay, Kay's hand was up earlier. I'm sure has your question be answered?
Okay, no, I just have something to ask.
Okay, please, quickly.
Okay, concerning the Hunter's effect, where the behavior of those who are being interviewed changes. We've been taught that in research, when you talk about a limitation to a study, you also quote how you overcome the limitation. So knowing that if we go to interview them, maybe as a group, their attitude wouldn't be actually the basal attitude we got. So how are we to overcome this phenomenon?
All right, thank you. That do you outcomes or the behavior of your respondents affect what you do? Is that what you're asking? Like, if they are nice to you?
No, what I mean is, okay, if they are aware that they are being observed.
I'm not clear with the question.
My question is, since if they are aware that they are being observed, they kind of put up a better attitude, meaning that we are not getting the baseline attitude we actually came to find. So in our reports, because we are supposed to actually state how we overcome probably some limitations. So how do we state that we overcame or probably minimize this attitude?
All right, thank you. It's clearer. Thank you very much for that question. From literature, participatory observation or participant observation has its biases, has limitations. There's no way you do non-participatory. There's no way you want to observe your client on the hospital bed that you are observing, that knows that you are going to sit with him, that you will not do, that you do non-participatory, you'll be invading their space. You know, humans as we have rights to our private space. It is right. So if you are going to be observing me, I have to know. If you bring camera and start observing me without my, if I know, I can sue you. In fact, people will ask you, how can you do non-participatory on humans? How can you do non-participatory? So like I said, that is its own limitation in itself. Once you write, you have done participatory observation. Anybody that is reading would know that it's a refined behavior. It's not the behavior like the behavior. So don't worry, don't stress yourself over justifying participatory, or no, not that way. Don't stress yourself over trying to justify or give the limitation. The limitation is there without. It's like taking drug that you know has side effects. It's the side effect. Everybody knows that if you take Valium, you will sleep. So if you now try to start writing in your paper, say, okay, I gave Valium and he slept, patient slept. Already we know once you take some drugs, you will sleep. So it's the same way. Once you do participate, you know you don't need to feel bad for doing participatory. You chose it. But that's the only observation you can do on humans. You can do non-participatory on animals. But for human, if I eventually know that you observed me and then you wrote about me and then you didn't give consent, it might be problematic. You can observe, you can do non-participatory with a group. For instance, you want to Hensas mob or this protest. It's a mob, it's group of people. You can do participatory, you are part of them. You want to observe a Google festival. A Google festival. A Google festival is a Google festival. It's a festival. People are gathered. But when you have to observe an individual, you must take permission. There's just no way around it. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much. As usual, it has been a learning process for both the fellows and those of us who came to observe. Thank you very much. Like it has been highlighted, we do not want to rush this. We need you to understand the basis and the intricacy of qualitative researches, and therefore we'll be breaking it in session. The time is fast spent for today, so we'll be ending it here today. Then we'll fix sessions to take the remaining two, as our facilitators have mentioned. Also, already having plans to handle the quantitative parts of the research statistics classes. So I'll get back to you on the arrangement on that. With this, Prof, do you have any comments?
No, just to thank Professor Ekundayo in the making, and I'm grateful to always learn from you. Different perspective every time you teach this. Thank you.
Thank you very much
for the opportunity.
All right, so fellows, we meet next week Saturday to continue our routine classes. Do have a great weekend.